Welcome back. We're going to go ahead and continue this show. Now, at the Santa Ana Bowl, they had that AMA World Qualifier, and it was a four-race night. So you had a maximum of 12 points you could actually earn during that particular race. And I'm going to go ahead and recap what happened that night, how I did, and how the rest of the field did in that first of three world qualifiers at the Santa Ana Bowl. My first race was Heat 6. I was lined up against the United States champion, scratch racing, Michael Bast. And Mike actually had a great gate. I thought I was going to beat Mike. I mean, I was like, I'm beating this guy. And I just blinked a little bit and he was gone. He was in gate one, I think, and Mike had a great start, and got second place, and I was trying. Mike Bass was there, and I was right behind him. I couldn't pass the guy, and Mike Bass got the win. I was a little annoyed at myself because I thought, I had a good chance, and Mike had a fantastic gate like always, and he beat my butt. So Mike won Heat 6, the champion, Michael Bass, and I got second behind the champion. So I guess that's not that bad. And then my next race was Heat 16, and I guess it was against Dave DeTemple. Do you know Dave DeTemple? And I went ahead and won that heat. And so I had 5 points in two races out of 6 points. So I just dropped that 1 point to Bass that first race. And then Heat 17, actually, it was Mike Bloom won that race. That was my first. I thought I was going to beat Mike. I beat him all year, and then he had a good ride against me. And I got second place. And the cowboy, John Cook. Do you know the cowboy, John Cook? He got third place behind me and Mike. And rounded off, the fourth place was Wild Bill Cody. Cody got fourth. Cook got third. I got second, and Mike Bloom, the Spider-Man, got first. So that was a good ride by Bloom. And I can't believe I lost a point. I couldn't believe it. I mean, Mike Bass, and then I lost a point to Bloom. That was bad because actually, I had his number all year long, and then I just went ahead and lost that race. So we all make mistakes, right? We all make mistakes, and I made a mistake. So let's say after 3 rounds, we only had 4 rounds, so really you can't afford to drop a point. That's really bad if you drop a point. And I dropped that point again. So I had 2, 4, 7 points out of 9. So I had dropped 2 points in that particular event. And then the last race we had was race 25, and actually, I thought I won that race. I mean, how you remember how you did, and I always remember winning that race, but maybe I didn't. But that was against Roland Rich McMurray. Rich was really good. I mean, Rich was he was a Northern California champion, and Rich McMurray was just an awesome rider. So I either beat Rich, which I remember I did, or I got second place. And so either I got 10 out of 12 points or 9 out of 12 points, but I know I beat that guy. So I either ended up in third place, tied, or fourth place in the meet. So that wasn't too bad. Actually, the first place was a tie between Bobby Boogaloo Schwartz and Denny Pyatt. And Denny went ahead and he won that tiebreaker. Denny Pyatt, he passed away a few years later at Hackney Speedway in England, and Denny wasn't really that great at that time, but that was like the first start of Denny Pyatt's stardom. I mean, Denny was pretty much losing a lot during that season, and then all of a sudden the World Qualifier came and he did good. He got a maximum score, Denny Pyatt. That was really good, and Denny turned to be a really amazing rider, and then he had passed away in the British League a few years later. But there was a tiebreaker in that event between Bobby Boogaloo Schwartz and Denny Pyatt. And Denny Pyatt beat the Boogaloo. So Denny Pyatt was coming on strong, and Denny Pyatt was a good rider. So Denny won that tiebreaker from the Boogaloo Man, and he ended up winning that particular event. So the first round was Denny Pyatt was first, Bobby Boogaloo Schwartz was second, and who else was in there? And we had either I was in third, or Bloom was tied, or Bloom got third. I got fourth. I don't know what happened, but I either got third or fourth place in that meet. And then Mike Faria got fourth place, and Rich McMurray got fourth place. I think I was tied for third, but I'm not sure. People say I was tied for third. I was tied for fourth. I don't know, but I wanted to win that meet, and I didn't win that meet. So third or fourth place, that's not bad. And then fifth place was, let's see, who was that? The United States champion. The United States champion, Michael Bass, got fifth. How did he get fifth place? That guy's too good. And I thought the guy was going to win the meet. And so it made me mad that Bass beat me, and then he ended up fifth place. Like, what the heck? I should have won that. I should have beat Mike Bass, and I would have had, a higher standing. Because every point, as I was talking to Bruce Penhall back a couple of days ago, and when you're racing in a championship race, you cannot afford to lose 1 point. I mean, every point is valuable. And I went ahead and, I lost a couple of points, and that's bad. So you don't want to lose anything. You want to win, win, win. Because the only way you're going to be a champion is if you win. You can't afford anything else. I mean, winning is everything. And if you lose, it's not good. Even second place, that's a loss. So you have to focus on winning every race when you race a championship race. So the fifth place was Michael Bass with 8 points. And then John Cowboy Cook got 8 points. Dave D. Temple, 8 points. And to round it off, Dwayne Yarrow, Brian Yarrow's papa, got 8 points. So that was good. Fifth place was tied and with those guys. And then going with 7 points, it was Bill Cody. Wild Bill Cody, the Jawa distributor in Garden Grove, California. And Bill got 7 points in that night. He ended up at sixth, or it was a ninth place. I guess it depends. And then with 6 points, it was Dave Faria. Mike's brother, Dave, went ahead, got 6 points that night. And it was an amazing night of Speedway, the quarter-mile track. It was really fast, and it was really good. And so that was just an amazing thing. At the Orange County jail, there was right above the Speedway track. And so every time when you raced at that particular venue, you could look up and see all the prisoners at the Orange County jail looking down, and I used to always hi, hi. But during the championship race, I was all business. There was no waving. But that particular venue, the jail was over the Speedway track. And when the races started, I guess the sheriffs let all the prisoners watch free. They didn't pay for the races, and I'm sure they enjoyed it, watching the Speedway from there. So that was the end of the first event of 3. And then they moved it to Auburn and Sacramento. So for the first race was at Sacramento. That's the area where they had the fairgrounds, and they used to have the 1 mile track back in the day. Bill Cody used to ride that. Mert Lawwell used to ride that mile track. Sonny Nutter, these great riders. Sammy Tanner, I'm sure. All these really good riders rode the 1 mile at the Sacramento Fairgrounds. And we went to the fairgrounds. It was not Fast Fridays at the time, before that time. It was the Sacramento Fairgrounds. And there was really kind of a bad thing that happened that night. It was actually tragic. And it was the biggest mistake that ever probably happened in the world. Is they went ahead and scheduled the World Championship Qualifier round 2. We moved from Southern California up to Northern California for the second night of Speedway. And I guess they had a fair thing and stuff. And then they had the I guess they had car racing and stuff the night before. And they were crashing into each other. The figure 8 thing. And the Bondo was in the track. and they went ahead and I guess some cars crashed and made Bondo on the track, and that created a lot of problems later on. A lot of problems. That Bondo was bad. So we're going to talk about what happened with that Bondo in a minute. But I just want to tell you that they had like a exhibition or some kind of figure-8 car. You know how they have those demolition derbies where they like crash into each other? They had that the night before on that particular speedway track. So the track was a little dangerous, but we did not know that at the time. And so, anyways, the first race was against Bobby Boogaloo Schwartz. Do you know Bobby Boogaloo Schwartz? We're going to talk about him.
Against the great Bobby Boogaloo Schwartz. And I had like, I think gate 1 or 2, I can't remember. And Bobby was next to me at the starting line in Sacramento. The gate went up and Bobby outgated me. And I just stayed on Bobby's tail the whole time, all 4 laps. I was riding him as close. I was touching Bobby every turn for the 4 laps. And after the 3rd or 4th lap, before the finish line, Bobby budged a little bit and I took the lead and I beat Bobby at the checkered line. And I said, I've never seen anyone push Bobby off the pole before, but I was really lucky. I was scared. I thought I'm going to crash Bobby every time I went into him. We were so close. I could just see my tire rubbing against his leathers. I was kind of nervous a little bit because I was really close to Bobby, but we didn't crash and ended up taking that race. It was great.
So I ended up getting lucky. Bobby was really hard. You know, if you race Bobby Boogaloo Schwartz, that guy was a future World Pairs champion. I mean, multi-time United States champion. Bobby Schwartz was a good rider, and he was a major pole rider. I mean, anytime you see Boogaloo on the racetrack, he was riding where? He was riding the pole, the fastest way around the track. And Bobby just like wouldn't get off the pole. And I rode kind of mad, and I just kind of kept pushing Bobby, and I thought, like I said, I was going to crash. I mean, Bobby is impossible to move off the pole. I mean, that guy is like so good, Bobby Schwartz. And I just kept hitting him. I kept racking Bobby really hard, and he knew I was coming. So he bobbled. I mean, when's the last time you've seen Bobby Schwartz bobble? I mean, he doesn't bobble. He's an amazing rider. And Bobby Schwartz is the master. I mean, that guy's great. But somehow, some way, somewhere, I was able to bump Bobby Schwartz off the pole. I've never seen that in my life, and probably never will see that again. So my second race, so I had 3 points. Woohoo! Was in first place after 1 round, tied with a bunch of guys, with 4 other guys. And then the second round, I had a really pretty good race. And it was against that guy who beat me the opening night, the master, Mike Fast Bast. And Mike was in the race. I can't remember the position we were at, but I lined up against Mike, and I said to myself, you know, Brian, Mike beat you the first time, and he did. You know, he beat me fair and square. Michael Bass was the champion, and anytime Michael Bass beats you, it's no disgrace. But I said at this time, I will not let Michael Bass beat me. Michael Bass will not beat the Bumblebee. I will not allow it. So we had the second race, and what happened?
Not meet. It was a 3-night qualifier. The first night was Santa Ana, and the last 2 were up north in Sacramento.
Well, we went ahead and raced. We're trying to get Michael Bass here.
Not meet. It was a 3-night qualifier.
Well, we went ahead and raced Michael Bass. The video is not playing. And I went ahead and if it plays, it plays. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we went ahead and had a really good race. I actually got the start on Mike Bass. And I actually, gated Mike Bass. I mean, I don't know how. If you gate Michael Bass, you have a really good race.
Not me.
Once Bass gets in the lead, he doesn't let go. Mike Bass is like the master. So I knew that in order to win that race, I had to gate Michael Bass because if I didn't, I lost. I mean, there's no doubt. There's no way, like you can pass Mike Bass because he is like Ole Olsen. He has eyes in the back of his head. But if you get the lead on Michael Bass, you can hold him off. And so that's exactly what we did is we were able to like have a good race against him and hold the master off. And that was really a good race. So I actually won that race and beat Mike Bass. So after 2 rounds, I had a perfect score of 6 points. So that was pretty amazing. I was able to like win that race and hold off the master. So I was sitting.
It was a 3-night qualifier. The first night was Santa Ana, and the last 2 were up north in Sacramento and Grass Valley. And
I was sitting there, and I actually was resting, like during the intermission. I was like tired, and I was resting, and I saw Michael Bass come running over to me. And he was like mad, and I was like, oh my gosh, Michael Bass is coming after me. Because I was only like a 17-year-old pump, I was a kid. And then Michael Bass is running at me, and I'm like, oh,
the world famous
Mike Bass is going to kill me for beating him.
I did really good.
So Mike Bass comes over and he's like,
I won the race.
Hey, Brian.
And I was like, I beat Mike Bass. That was pretty amazing. And then after the race.
Sorry about that. The computer go crazy. Mike Bass said, you did a great job. He says, what do you have in that engine? And I said, Mike, I have a Jerry Fairchild engine, and it's really fast. And Mike was like, yeah, Brian, you did great. And I was sitting back going, oh my God. I thought Mike Bass was going to punch me out because I beat him. Because, these guys don't like to lose to a young kid. And he was nice. Michael Bass is a gentleman and he's a good guy. He probably doesn't remember that today. Who knows? Because, Mike Bass raced. He won 4,000 races. He probably doesn't remember that one. But it was a world qualifier, and I beat the master. That was one of my crowning moments in Speedway, is actually beating Mike Bass in a championship race. Because, that was pretty cool.
It was a 3-night qualifier. The first night was Santa Ana, and the last 2 were up north in Sacramento and Grass Valley. And the Sacramento was at the fairgrounds, the race there. And I did really good. My first race was against the world famous Mike Bass. And I did really good. I just had the gate on Mike and I won the race. And I was like, I beat Mike Bass. That was pretty amazing. And then after the race, Mike Bass came up to me and said, hey, Brian, what do you got in that engine? That thing's fast. And I said, it's a Jerry Fairchild engine, Mike, and it's fast. And I was just amazed that my childhood hero, Mike Bass, came up to me, called me by my first name and said, you're fast, dude. So I was very impressed, and I was very humbled, actually, that Mike Bass, my childhood hero, would talk to me like that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Like Mike Bass coming up to you. How many times is the best rider in the world in the American Speedway come up to you and say, hey, you're pretty good. So that was really something that I always remembered and cherished. Michael Bass is an amazing guy. I would love to have Mike Bass on the show and talk to him. And I spoke with his wife, Deanne, yesterday, and she said Mike does not do interviews anymore. So I'm really sad. We'd love to have Michael Bass on the show. And I really reached out to try to get a hold of him. And she said, don't take it personal. We love you. Actually, Michael Bass and Deanne Bass, they watch the show all the time. They're our regular favorites. They love watching the show. But Mike had some health problems, and he doesn't really want to do an interview. But we certainly love Michael Bass and respect him. He's one of the most cherished riders in American history. One of the greatest riders ever is Michael Bass. And he's just an amazing living legend. And we honor and we respect the master. We call him the master because Michael Bass was the best. Bass is the best, Michael. So he's just a legend. And when I beat Michael, I just went ahead and was humbled. I was like, wow, you beat Mike Bass. it's like impossible to beat that guy because he was so good. I mean, he won 7 United States championships in the 70s. Who else won 7 United States championships? Only Michael Bass. However, Mike Faria, fly-in Mike Faria, he won 3 in the 90s. And that's, I think, one of the closest guys that ever got to Michael Bass was 3 United States championships. But Michael Bass, he won 7, and Steve won 1. So that's 80% of the United States championships won by the Bass brothers. That is amazing. The Bass brothers are just, crazy good. And we love Mike and Steve Bass. They're really just amazing in the United States history. We'll always cherish and love those guys. But getting back to Speedway, I had like 6 points out of 2 rides. That's a perfect score. So I entered in my 3rd race. I'm like, hey, you got like 6 points and you're in 1st place. I mean, you start like, and I was like getting confidence. I'm like, I can win this thing in Sacramento at the fairgrounds. I felt good, like I was like, there's only one other rider with a perfect score. So I was tied for 1st place entering the 3rd meet, the 3rd race out of 4. So I felt pretty good. I was ready to go. And then the tape went up and I took 1st place and I was like, damn, I'm going to win my 3rd in a row. I'm going to win this championship night. It's going to be Bumblebee night. I really felt that in my heart. And then something happened. Some guy from behind me, I don't know who it was, he took me out and he crashed me really hard. He just crashed me and he wiped me out. It's terrible.
Turned out really great. The first 2 races I won and I was in 1st place. And
so the guy just went ahead and he crashed me. And
turned out really great. The first 2 races I won and I was in 1st place. He actually
crashed. I thought my arm was broken. I actually had my arm stuck inside the guy's inside of like a wheel, and I'm trying to get the video going. It's not going to go. But actually, I just crashed, and I never had such a bad crash in my life. And it just was like stuck in the wheel.
The first 2 races,
and I just like got wiped out. I mean, I thought I broke my arm. I thought my arm was going to come off or cut off inside the thing. I can't believe I didn't lose my arm because it was like spinning in the tire. And it was really horrible. I mean, that was just like the worst. And so I had this experience that I ended up going to the hospital. My night was over. I was winning the World Championship round 2, 1 minute, and I was leading in round 3. That's pretty cool. I was gonna win that freaking thing. Then some guy from behind me just whack. He just took me out. I mean, I think the guy was mad or something. He's like, this young punk, we're not going to let him win because I was leading, tied for the championship in round 2, and then somebody just nailed the crap out of me and took me out. That was like horrible. So that was the end of my night. I went to the hospital. There was this guy next to me in the hospital, and he was like just like he had cancer or something. He was a smoker at the Sacramento hospital. And I was laying there really bad. And I actually waited till like the races were over. And then I went ahead and during that race night, Porky McCabe, he actually caught some of that Bondo. Remember I mentioned there was like a crash demolition derby races that day, or actually the day before. And there was a lot of Bondo on the track. And Porky was riding on the outside. I'm not really riding the outside. On the pole, there was no Bondo on the pole. But on the outside, there was Bondo, I guess, near the wall. And Porky, he went ahead and hit that Bondo. And he went ahead and he went really hard into the wall. So Porky ended up, getting
great. The first 2 races I won, and I was in 1st place. And their track in Northern California, and I was really happy, but things took a turn for the worse. The next race or so, people were taking me out, and I actually got in a horrible crash. Some guy railroaded me from behind, and my hand got stuck in the back wheel. I don't know how it didn't get torn off, I thought I broke it. I was just injured and I was going to go to the hospital. It was terrible. So that was pretty much the end of my night. I had a really great night, and then boom, it was over. And then that was the night that Porky McCabe got in that crash also. He hit the Bondo on the track. The night before there was car races, and I guess Bondo got put on the track. And he went right through a railroad post, a tie, and he severed his spinal cord, and he was handicapped for life. And he died a few years later. That really just bummed me out. Me being in the hospital with a broken arm, possibly, but it wasn't. And Porky having that horrible injury, which destroyed his life.
Yeah, it was really bad. I mean, the guy just like his life was ruined after that crash. It was terrible. And Porky really didn't like me very much. I was only 17 years old, and Porky was like 28 years old. So to a 17-year-old, a 28-year-old guy looks like an old man. And Porky was like a surfer guy. He was a pretty handsome guy. He had long blonde hair and blue eyes. And Porky was a really good-looking guy, really. He did. I don't know why they called him Porky, because he had this pig. He had the Porky the Pig thing on him. And he didn't look like a pig. He looked like a guy from Newport Beach. He was ready to go surfing, Porky McCabe. And he was a nice guy, but he didn't like me because I always beat Porky. I always beat him. And he used to come up to me when we first started racing at the Santa Ana Bowl. He was a good rider. Like, he was a good, D1 rider, lower end D1 rider. And he used to come up to me and say, "You better get ready to lose because I'm going to beat you." And he was good. He's good. But I beat his ass every time. And Porky, I mean, I don't think he ever beat me. And he was good. And, when you're good, and Porky had that heart of a racer. We talk about that all the time. Porky didn't like to lose. And I didn't like to lose either. So I got Porky's number, and I kept beating him and beating him and beating him. And Porky hated me more and more and more because I didn't say nothing, like when I was a racer. Even now, if I go back racing, I just shut my mouth. Like, I'm a quiet guy. Like, I just don't make trouble, and I don't tease anyone. If I beat them, I'm not like going to make a trouble. And Porky was always hating me. And so when Porky had that injury where he severed his spinal cord, I went to Porky's house afterwards. And I asked him, like, "Can I do anything for you?" I knocked on Porky's door, and then he answered it. He was in his wheelchair, I guess his nurse or something. And then I said to Porky, like, "I would like to, like, help you, like, can I help you with money? Or can I help you, like, can I do something for you?" Because I felt really bad that, Porky McCabe was handicapped for life. And then Porky, he was still mad at me. He was mad at me. And I went to his house. It was like Los Angeles. I went really far to see Porky because I felt really bad. This was about a month or two or like that after his race, after he crashed and he was paralyzed. I felt terrible. And then Porky, I was really sweet, and I was not. And Porky yelled at me and says, "I don't want you here no more. You leave. You caused enough trouble in my life." And then I said, "Porky, I want to help you. I really feel sad, and I want to, I really felt sad." And he slammed the door on my face. Porky slammed the door. So I didn't, I couldn't help Porky because he like got rid of me. I felt terrible, like I go there to help the guy out because I felt so sad and sorry for the guy. And he slams the door and he says, "Go away, never come back." So I never came back. I was really like sad, that Porky got injured, and then he had this attitude, he hated my guts. And I didn't hate his guts. I mean, I guess if you beat somebody, you never hate them. So but I felt bad for Porky, and I really felt sad. And so I went ahead and, tried to help him out. Then the story gets even worse. The story gets worse. Who cares about me and my feelings? I tried to help, but it didn't work. But the worst part of the story was not that he slammed the door on my face. I can take it. I'm a man. The worst part of that story was about a month or two later, his caregiver was I guess, bathing him or something, because he was paralyzed, I guess, from the waist down. I think it was the waist down. I can't remember. It was he was a quadriplegic or he was paralyzed from the waist down. I can't remember that, to be honest. But his nurse was helping him get into the wheelchair after like a shower, and then I guess Porky's leg was pushed back. You know how they have those little like areas for your feet to put in, the feet rest. Well, the nurse put Porky's foot very far back into the wheelchair, and there was this like screw like this that was somehow a bolt screw was sticking out, and Porky was leg was like this, and it went through the screw, and because he was paralyzed, he had no idea that the screw had been put in his leg. So, and then it got pulled out, but the leg ended up getting infected with gangrene. Do you know what gangrene is? You don't want that. It's where like infection comes, and something like the screw went into Porky's leg. Nobody addressed it. Why? Because Porky was handicapped. He was paralyzed. Porky was paralyzed from the waist down, so he didn't feel that he had the screw in his leg. Now, of course, if he could feel his leg, like if he wasn't injured, of course he would yell, "Oh, there's a screw in my leg." But he had no feeling from the legs and the waist down and stuff, so he didn't know that there was an injury. And the nurse didn't like check. I guess she was bad, the nurse. And he ended up dying about a month or two after that race. So Porky was like, he really had a string of bad luck. So anyways, so Porky went ahead and yeah, he had a tragic ending. I mean, he died, and we could go today if you want. And but he had a tragic ending, and Porky just today is okay. And Porky just went ahead and he just like he had a tragic ending. I mean, Porky goes from being like a heart of a champion to having this crash. He went through the wall and he hit his head on a railroad tie. Can you imagine that? I mean, of all the places to crash and to hit your head through the wall, there happened to be a big, heavy-duty railroad tie he went straight into. Oh, my God. I bet there was a lawsuit. That was the last time I ever saw a Speedway race at the Sacramento Fairgrounds. And I bet Porky McCabe's family put a big, massive lawsuit on that particular fairgrounds. That was an unsafe track, and the bondo on the track and the railroad tie made that place not good. So I'm lucky I didn't like go through that wall, because I mean that would like put you out. So that was the end of Porky's days, and it really had an effect on me. I was injured, like I mentioned earlier. I had my hand caught into like somebody's wheel. These guys took me out. When you're a young rider, people don't like you winning. And I thought, like I said, I was going to have a good chance of winning that race. I mean, once I get out in front, like I could hold it. And then I got crashed. And then I ended up going to the hospital, and I was in the hospital. I saw a guy with cancer. He was sitting next to me, and he was going, and I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? Like, and then the nurse came in, and she was treating me because I thought I broke my arm. Because I crashed, some asshole crashed me and wrecked my perfect night. That was really sucks. And then the nurse said, "Oh, he's dying of like cigarettes because he's a heavy chain smoker, and he's ready to die from like I don't know emphysema or cancer or some lung cancer." And he was coughing the whole time. I was hurt. I was laying in bed. I thought I broke my arm, but the X-rays, thank God, came back negative. But it was a severely mangled arm I had. And the guy smoked, and it was horrible. He was like driving me crazy. I was in the hospital for hours listening to this guy dying can't breathe. So at that time, I said to myself, Brian, you're never gonna like start smoking cigarettes, because I just saw the guy next to me and he was horrible, and the sound and everything. So I never smoked cigarettes in my life, after seeing the tragic you know, like when you can't breathe and you're dying, that is not good. Like we like to breathe and we like to suck air into our bodies. And then when you suck air and there's no air, that's like bad. And Bruce Flanders, he passed away of the same kind of thing from smoking cigarettes. So please, if you smoke cigarettes, you should probably stop because it's tragic. I mean, the ending is just, and it scared me, you know, like it woke me up. I mean, I wasn't a smoker anyways, but I said, you will never, ever, ever smoke in your life. And I never did smoke cigarettes in my life. So that was good. But that was, I guess, one of the things that being in the hospital was good because it showed me how tragic smoking is. But let's get back to Speedway. Let's get back to the races. I was mangled up. I couldn't even move my arm. I mean, it was like bad. But I wasn't a broken arm, which was, I guess, good. So we had night 3. I didn't even know what happened in night 2. So after Porky's crash and then my crash, I mean, I got in the ambulance after the race. I want to see, but I can't remember who won that night. I was so mad, you know, that my night got ruined. I went in the ambulance and I went to the hospital. So, and then I got home like 3 o'clock in the morning or something. I can't remember. It was late. I didn't have a home. I just like slept in my van. I drove over to the Auburn racetrack with one arm and somebody loaded my Speedway bike in my van. And then after the hospital, I guess they drove me back to the fairgrounds, and then I drove to Auburn Raceway after the hospital. And I had a nice big like queen size bed in my van with my Speedway bike. So I slept in my van overnight at the racetrack, and I couldn't move my arm, you know, like it was horrible. But I was on the program for the 3rd and final World Championship qualifier, and I just couldn't ride, you know. I was like, oh my God. So the track was terrible. On top of that, the track was really wet and tacky. It was like when you go into the turn, you can't slide. You just two-wheel like, oh. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, my arm is like broken and then the track is horrible. And I said to myself, I'm going to ride that race. So I went ahead and I got my uniform on with one arm. I remember that on any Sunday movie when those guys rode with the broken legs and stuff, he said, you know what? I don't care how bad you're hurt. You got one arm, you're going to race. And so I buckled up. I was on the program for the 3rd and final World Championship qualifier, and I raced it. And I didn't do very good. I really couldn't ride. I mean, I was serious. I mean, I was busted up. But I went out and I was like riding anyway. I figured the track was so bad I could look bad because I was injured anyway, severely injured. And I went ahead and I think I did terrible because I couldn't ride. I mean, I was lucky to I can't even believe I rode actually because I was so hurt. Most people probably would pass. But I wanted to be strong and I wanted to like, you know, finish the race even if I was handicapped. I wanted to just still, you know, be a part. So I think that's a lesson for a lot of, that's old school. You know, you want to like, I don't know. I have to tell you this story. Maybe you'll hate me or something. But there's a lot of racers, especially some of the younger guys, but not all younger guys, but few that they get crashed and they get hurt. We all get hurt. We all get crashed. You know, it's not a big deal. But these guys, some of these guys lay on the track for like long periods of time. They're like dying on the track, and then they get up and they're all like, you know, and then they like, I don't know, they make a big show out of it. And, you know, when we crash on motorcycle, we should not make a show. We should not fake our injury. We should not like play to the audience for applause. I mean, we should get up as fast as we can and get on that Speedway bike if we can and race and not make it like a show. And I've seen a lot of riders, you know, they make a big deal out of it if they crash. And of course, you know, it's bad when we crash, but don't make a drama, you know, don't make it a show. Just, you know, make it real. You know, if you're hurt, but don't like fake it. But I went ahead and did terrible that night, and it was bad. And one of these guys that used to like, he was a guy at the thing, his name was Dunbar. he went ahead, was nice enough to help me drive my van home. He came up to me after Auburn, and it was a long way home. It was like 12 hours or something. It was far. I could drive. I mean, I with one hand or something, And the guy was pretty cool. He said, can I drive your van home and you could just rest, in the driver's seat, in the passenger seat. And I said, okay. So, it was, bad. And then I just went ahead and just had a really, was affected, by Porky's crash. And then my injury wasn't any good, but I just couldn't get his crash out of my mind. And, I wanted to race in England. I wanted to be a world-class rider, actually. And Larry Costa, thank you, Larry. He said, you could have done well. You could have been up there with the top guns at the time, with the Penhalls, Morans, and stuff like that. And he said that. I didn't say that. I don't think I was that good. I had a fast motorcycle, but I didn't know if I was that good. But I wanted to race in England, and I had a father figure who was a speedway rider, Johnny Rocio. That's the famous Ernie Rocio, who died in '52. His brother, and Johnny kept telling me, don't race over in England, don't race there, because his brother Ernie, he died in '52, and it was real tragic and stuff like that. And I just remember one time I was racing over at Santa Ana Bowl, and I just sat there, and then a vision came in my head saying, you know what, Brian, if you race in England, this happened to me personally. This vision said you're going to be either handicapped like Porky, or you're going to be died like Denny Pyatt ended up passing away. So I was kind of freaked out because, as a speedway rider, Bruce Penhall said it best. You have to keep everything out of your mind and focus on winning. You can't think about these things. And, it was in my mind, it came strong. And it said, Brian, if you go to England and race, you will be handicapped or dead. I was like, I don't want to be dead. And I don't want to be handicapped. And I don't care if my name is nothing in the speedway world. I really don't care. Why? Because my health was more important than, let's say, if I died in England, who cares? Because, I'm dead. But I just decided at that point I would think about my future. And that particular night really did something to me. And then, like I say, I had this revelation that something bad was going to happen to me. So I had to kind of think about that and realize that, I had to watch what I was going to do and maybe change my plans.
I realized after my injury and watching everyone
So I went ahead and
die.
I ended up changing my plans, and I ended up kind of slowing down in my speedway racing days. And that was kind of one of the things that really triggered me. And I was at the prime of my life. I had some good races against Schwartz, and then I had good races against Bass.
I realized after my injury and watching everyone
something bad,
and get injured,
bad was going to happen.
Maybe I should.
And I valued my life really a lot, and so I decided that maybe it's best to back off a speedway a little bit and go back to college. I didn't go to college before, but I ended up going to college. I was kind of racing a lot of speedway in high school, so I wasn't very into school. I just passed the grades and then I was racing. But I went to college, and in college I studied, and I became a lot of leadership positions in college, and I became the president of the Internet Club Council, and I became the president of these clubs, and I ran for student body president of the college, and I actually tied for first place. And I lost in the runoff. So it was quite the thing. And I really, did my best to try to be a speedway rider, but it was not meant to be in the cards. And I just figured that if I had a choice of being a speedway rider or being handicapped, or being a speedway rider and being dead, or not speedway rider.
After my injury and watching everyone die and get injured, that maybe I should just be careful. But you only have one chance as a young person. I should have went for it and went to England, but who knows how it would have turned out. it. Thank you so much for watching the AMA Santa Ana Bowl races and the AMA World Qualifier. It was a great time, great experience, had a great memory, and that led to my demise as a Speedway rider as well. So it had good and bad, and there's some good and bad to racing. It has a beautiful side and it has an ugly side as well. So thank you so much for watching the video and liking this video.
That was my blog. That was my blog. I went ahead and put that on there, and you can see that blog if you want on my YouTube channel at Brian B. But I ended up coming back again in 2000, like 1990s. I have a vlog, a live stream I just did like yesterday, I think it was, of that particular event. And if you want to see that, I came back like 14 years later, and I actually wasn't as good as I was when I was. Who is as good as they were when they're a teenager? But I was like, okay. I ended up making Division I and almost won a few main events, and and it was harder because when you're 17 or 18 years old, that's the time to be a Speedway rider, not when you're older, because, you know, it's just different. And Speedway at the highest level was made for a young man. It wasn't made for a little bit older guys. I mean, older guys can ride Speedway, don't get me wrong, and that's really great. But I'm talking about world class. I'm talking about the highest level of Speedway rider. You have one crack at it, and that's it. I mean, you have one shot, and that's when you're young. When you're 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. When you're young, you have a chance of progressing and getting to that world championship level. But if you start Speedway like in your 30s or something, I'll forget it. But I actually had a good base of my Speedway, which helped me a lot. It's like riding a bicycle, you know. I mean, you ride a bicycle and then you don't ride a bicycle for a long time. You can like remember, you know, fairly quick how to ride a bicycle. But if you've never ridden a bicycle and you get thrown on a bicycle at age 14 or something, maybe it's, you know, it's hard because you never rode a bicycle. So Speedway is kind of like that. And I came back in the 90s and was in support class and worked my way up to Division I. And it was hard because in the 90s, they had all these great riders. I mean, there's this, I mean, everybody, I think it was the most best riders in Speedway ever. So cracking to D1 in the 90s was like impossible. I mean, you had Hancock, Hamill, or Malenko was there. You had Chris the Kid Manchester, Oxley. You had fencing racing, Rob Fencing. You had all these guys. Schwartz was back from England racing. And you had Scotty Brandt, and you had Steve Bad Boy Lucero, and the list goes on and on. You had Phil Collins was there racing. I mean, it was crazy. And so to race D1 in the 90s, I mean, it was like hard. You had to be good to crack that. And then when you got in D1, to win the main event against all these guys, good luck. I mean, there's only one main event winner per night, and you got like 30 guys who are like amazing going for that one spot. Very difficult. Very difficult. And then in 2005 to like almost 2009, I got back and I raced as the Bumblebee. There's my uniform back there somewhere. And I was a little older guy back then and a little bigger. I was eating a couple tacos at the time, and I was having fun. But I remembered my, like, you know, how to ride Speedway from the younger years. But I was not as good as I was when I was 17. I was really good. And then when I got older, I actually had a lot of fun racing as the Bumblebee. It was a lot of fun, you know, because when I was 17 years old, I was really focused on winning. And actually, when I was older, I focused on winning too. But I had a lot of fun in my last time as a Speedway racer. And that was a really good time. I was able to really, it got a lot of popularity. A lot of people liked me, a lot of fans, you know, stuff like that. I was having a fun time. And I was like, I had a good success. I was a support rider because I wanted to just, you know, try to win a little bit because I know that going up to Division I, it was kind of hard. I wasn't that good, I guess, because I was kind of older and stuff. So I said, just keep me down, let me win. I would rather win, bring put down to support than to be in Division One and to lose, lose, lose. I hate to lose, and I love to win. So that was perfect for me, and I won a lot of uh, trophies here, and it was fun. We had a good time, and doing the Bumblebee thing at the Costa Mesa was a lot of fun. I raced with Steve Evans over at the Victorville, and that was good. We won, I think I won 2 best pairs championships there, one with Russell Green, one with Alan Doss. That was really good. And then we won the National League Speedway Championship one year, and we had Ricky Wells on the team, and we had Buck Blair, we had Fast Eddie Castro. I was on the team, and that was a lot of fun. And actually, it was really good because, it's nice to be on a team because, when you race motorcycles, you always race like by yourself. I mean, that's what's cool about racing motorcycles. But when you race on the team, you actually race on the team. So you're a team member. You're not an individual. And I was like at the lower section of the team. I was one of the lower riders. That's okay. I can take it. I was older rider and I was having fun anyways. But the cool thing is that we were racing the Victorville Vikings, and the Victorville Vikings had all the bad guys like the Ficinis, the Gomez's, all those bad guys. And we were the good guys, the Los Angeles Aces from Los Angeles, California. And we were racing the bad guys, and like Ricky Wells would win, and then like Neil Ficini would win, and then they would be tied in points. And then the next time, Del Ficini would win or whatever, and then then Eddie Castro would win. And anyways, the championship meet turned out to be like tied. All the top riders, just like their points always matched. And then it came to the lower riders like me, and I can't remember who my partner was. Maybe it was like Kenny Hansen or something. I don't remember, but we went ahead and won all of our races. And so because of our winning all the time, and they tied all the time, the points that we got by winning all the time, in particular the Bumblebee, I hate to say this, but that was what made us the champion, is the points that we scored in the lower end. It doesn't matter really on a team where the points come from, but it just happened to be that night that the points came from the lower end, and it was from me. And we won the championship. So that was amazing. I was really happy that I was a part of winning that championship. It's nice to be on the team winning, but when you know that you were like a big part of the success of that team, that it was your points that actually propelled your team for that championship, that really made it great. So I was very happy because I wasn't just a team member, but I helped win that championship. So I was really happy anytime that I can be a part of like helping the team win. And actually, it was because of my points. It was really great. And so that made it extra special, that I actually was a big part of helping that team win the championship. And that night I won, it was a main event. So I think it was support class. And so I had 2 trophies up there. There's one of those trophies up there. I had 2 trophies in one night. And that was amazing. I mean, how many times does a Speedway rider have 2 trophies in one night? That's like impossible. And I did that one with the West Coast, the National League Speedway League Championship, and the main event win. So I was a double winner, and I was not going to be denied that night. So that was cool. So Speedway riding the last time was really fun, and I had a lot of success. And a couple times at Costa Mesa, I got booed, and I really hated it. And I really hate that, because I like people to like me, you know. I don't like people to hate me. But in my class, I had a string of like 3 or 4 main event wins in a row, and the people start getting restless and they start like throwing stuff at me, saying, "Boo, we hate you." And I was sad, you know, like I was like, you know, Michael Bass did that too, but he was like a machine, you know, he didn't care. But I didn't like that when people like throwing stuff at me and stuff. But and then I just decided, you know, you're not gonna just not win for a while. I didn't want to win because I hated people like mad at me or something. Because I was there just having a good time. I wasn't really trying to like win a championship or anything. I was just having a good time. And that's actually the most fun time to ride speedways, when you're just enjoying yourself. Because when you're young, it's fairly intense and you want to win. And when I raced when I was young, it was not fun. I mean, it was like business. And when I got older, it was a lot of fun. So we got to go back to Speedway, go back to when they open up the Costa Mesa, or go back to Bakersfield or whatever and do some riding. That would be fun. And that was a good time. So the last time I raced Speedway was really one of the best. We'll probably do a show on that. That was really cool. And it was just fun, and it just had a lot of, you know, good times, good memories. And it was like kind of a relaxing time where I could go out and race without pressure. And actually, I got mad though when I lost. So I guess that burning desire, that burning thing never left. And sometimes I wasn't very nice, you know, like to myself, because I would have a bad night or something and I would lose. And let's say at Costa Mesa, especially, and I would just get mad a lot, too much. So I still had that fire inside. I was very competitive, and I would just get mad and I would just pack all my stuff and I would just go to the gate, you know, and then Lenny or the guy that doing the gate would open the gate, and I would just take my stuff, all my Speedway stuff, to my van, my pickup truck, or my trailer, and I would just load it all up. And sometimes when I got mad, I just drove home, you know, and I just was so mad. And and then the next week, people would come up to me like, "Brian, we were looking to sign your autograph and you were gone, you went home." So I was a little bit of a bad sport, I must admit. I hate to lose, and I always have been that way, but it was still fun, you know, racing. But I still kind of like hate to lose. I mean, who likes to lose? But anyways, I was kind of like, you know, I was kind of a little upset at myself for losing when I did. But anyway, so we're going to go back and we're going to ride again. I don't know. Maybe I'll get last place all the time. Who knows? But we're going to have fun. Whatever we do, we're going to have fun. But when I get on a Speedway bike, I think it's hard for me to like go slow or just like back off. You know, I don't care if I like crash or whatever. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go. So we're going to see what happens. And tomorrow night, we have a very good up-and-coming rider, a Speedway rider, Renton Todd. He's got a new motor from Emil in England. He's got a World Championship GM motor, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow night. He's a really good up-and-coming young rider, a very personal guy. We're going to have a good time with Renton Todd tomorrow night in the Hive. And hopefully everything's going to work out with his equipment, and we're going to have a great show. So get ready for that. It's going to be 5 o'clock California time. We're going to have Renton Todd on in the Hive, and we're going to have a really good time. This kid is good. You know, there's so many of these good young riders. We're trying to get Sebastian Palomisi on the show. He's a really good up-and-coming young rider. And we want to talk to these guys because these young kids are the future of Speedway, and we want to see, you know, what's happening with these guys. And Renton Todd's very excited to be on the show. We're looking forward to that, and we're going to have a good time with Renton Todd. So that's going to be tomorrow night in the Hive. So look forward to that. Put that on your schedule. And if you don't put it on your schedule, just subscribe and ring the bell, and you're going to be notified when Renton Todd comes on. We have Dennis Sigalos coming on for part 2. Siggy is going to be in the Hive. And we're going to have Bruce, the Fox Penhall, back for a second interview. He never does 2 interviews or a Siggy, but we're going to do that one. And we like those guys. They're awesome. So we're going to have fun. That's coming up in the future, not tomorrow. We're going to have Renton tomorrow. So we look forward to it. So thank you so much for joining us tonight and this live stream Speedway chat of the 1978 World Qualifier. And it was a lot of fun, but it was a tragic ending for many. And so anyways, thank you so much for watching. We're going to have lots of live streams, lots of cool Speedway. We're all about Speedway and preserving Speedway for the future. So thank you once again for joining us live in the Hive. Be safe, ride on two wheels, and always be careful. Don't crash, okay? And we'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you so much, and take care.